You've probably heard that Tadalafil can be used every day or only on demand, but the truth is that almost no one really understands which of these strategies works best for each situation. That's exactly where most men go wrong. They use Tadalafil at the wrong time and then think the medication doesn't work. Today, we're going straight to the core of this issue, revealing details that most videos never address and that can completely change your performance. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you'll realize that understanding this difference can transform your sex life. And the best part, no fluff, no mystery, and no complicated language. Let's start by uncovering what men most often ask in urology offices. Now, imagine there is a perfect timing for using Tadalafil, and that once you discover what yours is, you gain a level of control that many men never reach. This is the point where your performance stops depending on luck in the moment and becomes predictable, stable, and secure. But that only happens when you know exactly when to use it every day and when to use it on demand. This is where many start watching and only then realize they've been doing everything wrong for years. And so you don't get lost, in the very next section, I'm going to give you exactly what you came for, the practical difference between the two ways of using it. Hang on, because this turning point starts now. Tadalafil straight to the point. Differences between daily use and on-demand use. When we talk about Tadalafil, there are two completely different strategies that change how the medication affects your performance. Daily use works with a low, constant dose, always maintaining a stable level of the substance in the body, which favors naturalness, spontaneity, and predictability. On-demand use, on the other hand, is focused on specific moments. You take the dose a few hours before sex and expect the effect that same day. This difference sounds simple, but it has a huge impact on erection quality, confidence, and even performance anxiety, because each approach serves a different need for the man. Understanding this is the first step to choosing the right path for you. Think of daily use as keeping the engine always warmed up, ready to run without needing prior prep. Meanwhile, on-demand use is like turning on the engine only when you know you're going to need it stronger, but not as constant. Men who have more frequent sex, constant insecurity, or more persistent erectile dysfunction tend to benefit more from daily use. Those who have sex more occasionally or want just an occasional boost usually do much better with on-demand use. And if this initial explanation has already opened your eyes, you'll want to keep going, because in the next section, I'll show you how Tadalafil actually works in the body, and that will explain why these two strategies are so different. If this content is helping you, take a moment now to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. How Tadalafil works in your body and why that changes everything. Tadalafil works by relaxing the blood vessels in the penis and allowing blood flow to increase during arousal. But the key point that almost no one explains is that this action depends directly on the level of the substance circulating in the body. When you use it every day, you keep a constant baseline that provides a much higher state of readiness, reducing failures and making your response more natural. With on-demand use, the peak of action is more concentrated and planned, working better for those who need a specific boost. It's this physiological difference that makes the way you use it such an important decision. Another essential point is that Tadalafil has a long half-life, which means it stays active in your system for a long time. This explains why it can be used daily without losing effectiveness, and also why it works so well when taken a few hours before sex. Once you understand this mechanism, you realize that the choice between daily or on-demand isn't about which is better, but about which one matches your sexual rhythm and your profile. And to help you see this even more clearly, in the next section, I'll show you exactly in which situations daily use is the best option, and many of them may surprise you. When daily use is the best strategy. Daily Tadalafil use is usually the best choice for men who deal with recurrent erectile dysfunction or who have sex more frequently. By keeping low, steady doses, you drastically reduce the risk of failure, increase spontaneity, and eliminate that pressure to get prepared before sex. Men who suffer from performance anxiety also tend to benefit a lot from daily use, because the predictability of the effect lowers the fear of failing. Another important point, those who have more persistent vascular problems, such as diabetes or hypertension, usually find more stability with this strategy. In addition, Daily use helps create a more favorable physiological environment for consistent erections, regardless of the time of day or circumstances. This means that even unexpected, out-of-routine encounters tend to happen more easily. For men with an active sex life who value naturalness and want to eliminate worries, this is usually the strategy that delivers the best results. In the next section, you'll understand the other side of the coin, when on-demand use makes more sense, and why for some men it works better than any other approach. When it makes more sense to use it only on demand. On-demand tadalafil use is ideal for men who have a less frequent sexual routine or who prefer to use the medication only at specific times. In this approach, the dose is usually higher than in daily use, creating a strong and targeted peak of action. This is useful for men who have satisfactory erections most of the time, but want to ensure better performance on special occasions. It also works very well for those who don't want to keep the medication in their system every day or who prefer to use it only when they need a stronger boost. Another advantage of on-demand use is the predictability of the effect window. By taking tadalafil a few hours before sex, you can plan the ideal timing and count on maximum potency. For those who don't feel the need for continuous support, this option is practical and efficient. And if you're noticing that each strategy serves completely different profiles, in the next section, I'll show you the common mistakes that make many men think tadalafil doesn't work, when in reality, they're just using it the wrong way. This is a point that can completely change your experience. If this content is clearing up your doubts, leave your like and subscribe to the channel to receive videos that can transform your sex life. Common mistakes that make tadalafil not work as it should. One of the most frequent mistakes is believing that tadalafil works like a switch, as if you just take the dose and wait for an automatic erection. That's not true. The medication needs sexual stimulation to work, and many men think the drug is useless, simply because they don't understand this basic physiology. Another mistake is taking the dose at the very last minute, especially with on-demand use, without considering the time your body needs to absorb the medication. These simple errors make many men give up on tadalafil before they've actually used it correctly. Another common problem is unrealistic expectations, like assuming daily use will fix everything immediately or that on-demand use will always deliver maximum power in any situation. The truth is that lifestyle habits, anxiety, and vascular health directly influence the result. Many men also never adjust the dose to their own profile, which compromises the effect and creates frustration. In the next section, you'll learn how to identify your own sexual profile and choose the ideal protocol, and this clarity is often the turning point for men who want consistent results. How to identify your profile and choose the ideal way to use it. Figuring out the best way to use tadalafil starts with analyzing three main factors: sexual frequency, anxiety pattern, and consistency of your erections. Men who have frequent sex or want spontaneity usually match better with daily use. Those who have reasonably good erections but want to guarantee extra performance on specific occasions tend to do better with on-demand use. Honestly, evaluating your sexual behavior is the first step to avoiding strategies that don't fit your lifestyle. Another key point is how you perceive your own confidence. If you're the type who gets nervous before sex, fears failing, or has already had negative experiences, daily use creates a baseline that reduces that tension. On the other hand, if you're more confident and just want an occasional upgrade, on-demand use tends to deliver everything you need. Once you understand your profile, you stop experimenting randomly and start using tadalafil strategically, greatly increasing your chances of success. In the next section, I'll reveal how side effects change depending on the type of use, and that can make a big difference in your choice. Side effects: what really matters for each type of use. When we talk about tadalafil side effects, many people assume they're the same regardless of how you use it, but that's not true. With daily use, side effects tend to be milder and more constant, such as a slight headache or nasal stuffiness, precisely because the dose is lower and the body gets used to a stable level of the substance. This pattern makes daily use more predictable, avoiding surprises and allowing many men to tolerate the medication well in the long term. It's an approach that brings stability without major fluctuations in the body. With on-demand use, since the dose is usually higher, side effects can appear more intensely on that same day. It's common to notice stronger facial flushing, a more noticeable headache, or even a mild feeling of pressure in the head. None of this is dangerous, but understanding this difference helps you choose the strategy that best matches your routine and your tolerance. In the next section, I'll show you how each protocol affects the duration and quality of your erection, something many people overlook, but that completely changes the sexual experience. If this content is making sense to you, go ahead and leave your like and subscribe to the channel to keep receiving videos that truly help. Duration, intensity, and quality of the erection. What changes with each protocol? When you use Tadalafil daily, the big advantage is the consistency of the response. Since the level of the substance stays stable in the body, the erection tends to happen more naturally, without extreme peaks or sudden drops in effectiveness. This improves predictability and confidence because you don't depend on the exact timing of the dose to perform well. Many men report that with daily use, it feels like they are back to normal, as if their body simply responds more reliably every time arousal appears. With on-demand use, on the other hand, the intensity of the erection is usually more striking, precisely because the single higher dose produces a strong peak of action. This can lead to firmer and longer-lasting erections on that day, especially in the first hours after the medication's peak. However, this intensity comes with a greater need for planning, since the effect is more concentrated in time. Understanding this difference helps you predict the exact kind of result you want. In the next section, we'll dive into a rarely discussed but essential aspect, the emotional and psychological impact of each way of using it. Tadalafil and self-esteem, how using it correctly changes your sex life. The way you use Tadalafil directly affects not only your erection, but also your confidence. With daily use, many men report a sense of security that goes beyond the physical. Knowing that your body is always ready reduces anxiety, makes things feel more natural, and cuts down that constant fear of failing. This calm creates a positive cycle. The more you trust, the better you perform, and the better you perform, the more your self-esteem grows. It's a transformation that happens subtly but deeply, restoring your sense of control over your own sexuality. On-demand use can bring a different emotional impact, more tied to planning and preparation. Men who feel confident when they gear up for the moment tend to do well with this approach, because the ritual of taking the dose gives them a sense of taking charge of the situation. But for men with a history of insecurity, that same preparation can increase pressure. Understanding how your emotions react to each strategy is just as important as understanding the physical effect of the medication. In the next section, we'll bust some myths that get in the way of choosing properly and make many men go wrong simply due to misinformation. Myths and truths about Tadalafil that get in men's way. One of the most common myths is believing that Tadalafil is addictive or that the body gets used to it and then it stops working. That's not true. What really happens is that when the underlying problem isn't addressed, like anxiety, poor circulation, or metabolic diseases, the man may think the medication lost its effect when in reality the external factor got worse. Another strong myth is the fear of using it daily. Many think this will overload the body, but in practice the daily doses are low and are designed specifically to maintain a safe, stable level of the substance in the system. Another common misconception is believing that on-demand use works equally well for all profiles. For some men, especially those who are already insecure or have frequent sex, this approach can create more anxiety than solutions. It's also false that Tadalafil is only for men with severe erectile dysfunction. In reality, it's an important ally for anyone who wants to improve performance, confidence, and consistency. In the next section, I'll bring everything you've learned together and show you which way to go so you don't go wrong, and finally choose the ideal protocol for you. If this video is helping you see the truth behind so many myths, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. That's what allows me to keep bringing content that truly makes a difference. What's the best path for you from here? After understanding how each method works, you've already seen that there is no single, universal answer about the best way to use Tadalafil. Daily use offers stability, spontaneity, and emotional control for those who need consistency. On-demand use delivers intensity, planning, and practicality for those looking for just an occasional boost. The most important point is not choosing the best drug, but the strategy that fits your lifestyle, your sexual routine, and what you really expect from your performance. When that choice is made clearly, results appear faster and more naturally. From here, the ideal step is to observe your own profile, understand your sexual frequency, your level of confidence, and your erection history. The more honest you are with yourself, the easier it will be to define the right path. And remember, adjusting small things like timing, dose, and strategy can completely transform your experience. If you apply everything you've learned throughout this video, you'll be much closer to having a stable, secure, and satisfying sex life. That's the difference accurate information makes.